see you up front. Ringside politics, politics with a punch. Ringside politics, analysis made crystal clear. Ringside politics with your host Jeff Cruair.
All right, welcome back, folks. Our next guest is an economist. He's a gun rights advocate. He founded the Crime Prevention Research Center, a nonprofit focused on gun laws and crime. Famously argues more guns, less crime. Served in the first Trump administration. We're glad to have Dr. John Lott with us here on the Ringside Politics program. And Dr. Lott, how are you, sir? Welcome.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, I guess I view myself more as a researcher, not a gun rights advocate, but thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Okay. Researcher, and you wear many hats, so glad to have you on the program. I wrote a column about Australia because I was really taken aback by what the Prime Minister did down there. You know, you had a terror attack. You had Jews targeted at a Hanukkah festival. You had two terrorists that went on a rampage and killed 15 people, wounded 42. You had one unarmed guy courageously go disarm one of them. The police took 13 to 15 minutes to respond or return fire. And in the aftermath, the Prime Minister talked about right-wing extremism and talked about more gun control, and didn't mention the word Islam, Muslim, or Islamic extremists. So I was just blown away by his response. Don't they already have strict gun control in Australia, Dr. Lott?
Yeah, they had gun confiscation that confiscated almost a third of the guns that people owned in 1996 and 97. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation on that. People have claimed that that gun confiscation was responsible for a large drop in firearm homicides and firearm suicides. And it's simply statistical malpractice for them to go and make that claim. Basically, you know, if you have firearm homicides falling in a perfectly straight line, you could pick any point along that line, and the after average is going to be before the below average. But making simple before and after comparisons can be extremely misleading. You know, if it's falling at exactly the same rate before and after any confiscation, you know, you look at it and it's not obvious that it had any real impact on things. What you want to look at is it falling at a faster or a slower rate? Is there some discontinuity in the change? And what in fact you find is that it was falling for 15 years prior to the confiscation, and then it stopped falling in terms of firearm suicides afterwards. Firearms suicides were very similar. And if you look at total suicides or total homicides, those actually went up after the confiscation. And, you know, but they seem to have this belief by the media constantly putting out this kind of misleading statistic there that if they only have more, but, you know, the basic problem that you're saying is that, look, whether it's 13 or 15 minutes, some claims that it was less, but even, you know, 6 minutes or 10 minutes is a huge amount of time to go and do a lot of damage.
Well, in fact, some people said it was 20 minutes, that it was longer. So, I mean, if it was 10 or 6, it was still too long. And as people say, I mean, while you wait for the police, and if you want just the police to have firearms and no one that are civilians, then evildoers, criminals, terrorists can do a lot of damage before the police arrive. And there you had police there, and they didn't act, at least initially. Imagine if there would have been people in that crowd who had firearms, Dr. Lott.
Right. Well, they won't even let the security for Jewish groups in Australia have firearms for protection. But look, you're exactly right. And the same thing is true in the United States. Where we have our mass public shootings are overwhelmingly, about 92% of the time, occur in places where guns are banned. You know, the Boston or the Brown University attack was no different, or the Minneapolis school shooting attack. These attackers may be crazy in some sense, but they're not stupid. And if one goes and reads their diaries and manifestos, they state over and over and over again that they go and they pick these gun-free zones. So in Minnesota,
And
if you
yeah, go ahead.
if you or I were to take a gun onto school property there, it's 5 years in prison. For you or I, that's a huge penalty. Our lives would be completely destroyed. But let's say you're the murderer there who's murdered 2 people and wounded 17 others and maybe spending 5 or 6 lifetimes in jail. Does anybody think that taking 5 years away from their 6th or 7th life is going to make a difference there? It's no real penalty. All you've done is set up a set of rules so that the law-abiding good citizens will be disarmed, and the criminals take advantage of that.
That's exactly right. Whether it's Australia with terrorists or whether it's here with criminals, mass murderers, they're not going to care about your gun control. They're not going to care about your laws. They're going to find ways to get firearms. It's just the law-abiding people that you're impacting, that you're making defenseless, as you're empowering people that want to commit crimes and commit harm, and thus they do so, as you say, at gun-free zones, at schools, at churches, where there's nobody to shoot back. And they can commit as much havoc and crime as possible until the police arrive, and many times it's 6 minutes and 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and people are dead. So this is just very upsetting to me, Dr. Lott, after the horror in Australia, to hear the Prime Minister call for more gun control, blame it on gun violence and not Islamic extremism.
It's obvious to you and I, unfortunately, in part because of the type of misinformation that we start talking about before. They just think if they can simply get rid of guns, then that will solve the problem. Look, there's one simple point you can make, and that is there are lots of places in the world that have banned either all guns or all handguns. We saw handgun bans in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And yet every single time that either all guns or all handguns have been banned, murder rates have gone up, often by, threefold, fourfold increases right after the bans have been put in place. And, there's you'd think out of randomness, once or twice, you'd find that murder rates or homicide rates had gone down or at least stayed the same.
Don't.
And yet you can't even find one place like that.
Well, with that, we're going to have to roll, but we want to have you back on. Dr. Lott, thank you for your research. Thank you for your work and leadership on this issue. Pleasure to have you on the program. All right, let's share with you folks some of the memes of the week.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you.
To us by Mike in Mount Hermon, Louisiana.